Hey everyone! If you don't know who I am, I'm Ethan from Flaming River Studios, the lead developer of DeepSpace RPG. This is going to be the first of many sort of long-form to medium-form videos where I talk about the rules of DeepSpace, the mechanics, how you get started playing, as well as my experience as an indie dev and advice to others. This one is going to be about how to get started playing DeepSpace right away using the Quick Start Guide. So let's get started. Getting into tabletop RPGs can seem pretty daunting, but really it's not. DeepSpace in particular is a great place to start off on, as it has a very pretty simple and easy system to get into, but it has a lot of depth in strategy and teamwork and whatnot. In addition, the pre-written adventure modules and quick start guides and whatnot have a very hands-off approach where pretty much all the descriptions and pretty much all the descriptions and mechanics and stat blocks and whatnot are all pre-written down for you. So for GMs, it's really, you can kind of just pick up and play. This makes DeepSpace a really great system for new players, even to tabletop RPGs in general, to sort of just pick up and play. But experienced TTRPG players, don't go anywhere. There's a lot of stuff for you as well. So to start, basically, what is a TTRPG? A TTRPG, or tabletop RPG, is a collaborative storytelling game where players sit around a table playing different roles and telling a story together. DeepSpace, like many other TTRPGs, sort of involves players taking on one of two roles, either the Game Master or GM, or the players. The core game loop involves the Game Master sort of describing a scenario, and the players take on heroes or characters within the story, and they describe how they react to the scenario described. The GM describes the reaction to their actions, and the core game loop repeats. Obviously, there's a lot of nuance and rules from there, but that's pretty much the core game loop of most tabletop RPGs. To learn more about how this plays out through DeepSpace, we're going to go to step 1, which is downloading the game. The great news about DeepSpace is that literally everything is free on our itch.io page. So start by heading there through the link in our bio or the description or pretty much anywhere through our link tree. So scroll down to the bottom and click download now. From there, you can just click the no thanks. You don't have to pay anything. There's a couple different things you can download here, but the most important one is the Quick Start Guide full PDF. The printable files splits up the Quick Start Guide into different parts for printing or sharing. For example, the players should look at the rules but not the adventure. In addition, Attack on Keldron 8 is a secondary adventure that you could run should you want more, but it uses the rules found in the base Quick Start Guide, so you really need that one first and foremost. 2 is to learn the rules. The first thing that you have to do is just read the rules in the Quick Start Guide, which is pages 1 through 18, but about half of that is just appendices for the different characters and weapons that you have access to, so it should be a pretty easy read. If you're already experienced with tabletop RPGs, a lot of the rules you're reading for DeepSpace should be pretty old news, but make sure to check out the combat rules on page 5 and read about the card system, because that's something that's pretty unique to DeepSpace. For the future, I'll be uploading vlogs and discussions about specific rules and how certain mechanics work, but the Quick Start Guide should pretty much be everything you need to get started right away. Now, step 3 is assembling a group. So this is unfortunately the hardest part of playing a tabletop RPG, is assembling a group. If you have the drive and initiative to set up a new game, you'll probably end up as the Game Master. Congrats! Generally, you want a group between 5 and 6 players, including the Game Master. DeepSpace can be pretty harsh, and each class has its own strengths and weaknesses, so you kind of want as many of the different classes as possible to make sure you're covering all of your bases, basically. Setting up a TTRPG group generally involves pulling your friends into whatever your latest board game obsession is, or finding your group online through communities like r/LFG. The cool thing about introducing DeepSpace to friends is that it's really easy to pick up and play, so you can sort of advertise it and get other people to play even if they're totally unexperienced with tabletop RPGs. It's a great introductory game. So, another great resource is the DeepSpace official Discord, which you can find through our link tree, which is in the link of any of my bios, basically. In there are already people who are interested in DeepSpace, so it's a great resource to pull from if you're looking to play. As well as, in the future, once it gets big enough, I am going to be hosting a lot of different events and whatnot for playing on there, a lot of which I will be probably a part of, so if you want to come play with me, definitely get involved in the DeepSpace official Discord. Step 4 is prepping the game. Now, preparing for the game is a little bit different whether or not you're a player or a game master. If you're a game master, which, let's face it, you probably are, all you really need to do is make sure you're well read on the existing playtest module that you're gonna run. If you're running Horrors Aboard the Godsend, the one from the Quick Start Guide, it does a lot of the work for you, but it definitely doesn't hurt to just take a pen and paper and just write down notes about anything that you'd want to remember or keep track of throughout the adventure. If you've been invited to a group as a player or you've convinced someone else to be a GM, then you're going to be a player. However, you still do have a few things to read. It really helps your GM out a lot to have read the rules a little bit. So I really suggest you download the Quick Start Guide as well and check out the rules from there, so make sure you're at least a little bit well read. I'd suggest you go into the printable files and just look at the Quick Start Guide rules, as you don't want to spoil yourself by reading the adventure that your GM will be running for you. After that, go into Appendix A Heroes on page 10 of the Quick Start Guide rules and take a look at the 5 different hero options that you can choose from. I'd suggest coordinating with your fellow players to make sure you don't all end up as 5 human gunners and you all have sort of a diverse set of classes. Once you've picked one, print out the corresponding character sheet from the pre-made character sheets folder within the Quick Start Guide. After you've done that, the only choice you really need to do is pick out your weapon loadout. Back on the rules page for your character, you can see your starting loadout. Pick a primary and secondary weapon from the ones listed from your character and copy down the rules from the weapons appendix on page 13. The last thing that you have to do is print, cut, and assemble your combat deck. Back on the character page once more in the rules is a list of cards for your combat deck. Take note of those and print out the sheets you need from the card sheets PDF. Now you can play them just like this on the paper you cut them out with, but it's also really cheap and easy to just cut and glue them onto blank playing cards you can buy from Amazon or the Dollar Tree or whatever for like $8. That's what I've been doing for my playtesting and it's worked great. Now the last step is to play. As convoluted as all of that I've just talked about sounds, you are officially all set and ready to play. Now you can assemble your group in person or play online. Being in person definitely has its benefits for being able to look at each other's cards and whatnot, for example if you're a lieutenant, but playing online works great as well. As a player, the only thing you really need to show up with is your character sheet and a pencil, as well as some dice and your combat deck. For a GM, all you really need is probably a copy of the rules on hand, as well as the adventure guide and any notes you've taken, and a set of dice. It also doesn't hurt as well to have a visual reference for when it comes to combat. You can do this as simple or as complex as you want. Mostly I just use this adventure grid that I used for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition years ago. It still works, and I just use it with the sort of assembly of minis and tokens and whatnot that I've assembled and 3D printed and whatnot over the years. You kind of just need something. DeepSpace is a pretty strategic game, so having a resource where you can see where the cover and the enemies and all the terrain around you is for planning for combat can be a pretty important resource. From there, once you've got all that set up, just follow the basic cycle that I've talked about. The GM describes something, the players react, the GM discusses the action from the reaction, and so on and so forth. If you've read the rules for the Quick Start Guide, you should be fine as long as you go into it with an open mind. Just make sure to be respectful of your fellow players, and above all, just have fun. That should be about it from this. Like I said, from the future, I'll be talking about other rules and in-depth mechanics of DeepSpace as I continue to develop it. So make sure to drop a comment down below if you had any questions or anything that you'd like me to talk about, and I'd be happy to respond. In addition, if you did end up playing DeepSpace, make sure to comment down below your experience. I'd love to hear about what kind of hijinks people get up to aboard the Godsend, or delving into Keldron 8, or even if you run your own thing. I'd love to hear about it. So that's about it from me. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will hopefully see you all in the next one. Bye, everyone.